it's night time now, so we're going to have to do the ASMR version. But today we're going to be creating warps and donks. Just kidding, we're not going to do ASMR version. But yeah, we're going to do warps and donks today. So just to cover, this is only my second video, but I wanted to do a selection of music production tips that are like real beginner stuff, and I'm going to try and explain them as simply as possible. I want to use Ableton stock plugins only, and yeah, it's just a load of stuff that I wish I'd have known a bit sooner that would have sort of advanced the way that I create music and the final product. So let's do warp bass first. So we're going to use operator, drag it into an empty MIDI channel, and then here we've got our first oscillator. So let's draw in some notes, and the key thing here is that you're playing around this from C0 to C1. That's your sub bass sort of range. So let's go with the G. Let's make some notes. One little tip for anyone using Windows, I'm not sure what it is with Mac, but if you hold Alt and drag the note out, it means that you can do it to any length you want instead of it locking to the timeline. So if I let go of Alt, you can see how it sticks to each line, yep, in 16ths. And then if I Alt and click, it's smooth. Oh, or it should be, there we go, smooth. So let's draw in 4 of these, keep it simple for now, and let's have a listen. Cool. This won't be that audible unless you're wearing headphones or you've got decent speakers, by the way, until I start adding stuff. So at the moment we've got a single oscillator playing a bass, a sub bass note at G, and then we're going to start playing around a little bit with the attack and the release. Now, the attack, oh, pardon me. The attack is what happens at the start of the note, so that's how fast the note comes in. And then the release we've got is what happens when you let go of that note here. So we want to make it a little bit of a smoother entry for that bass. So let's just go to oscillator 1, drag the attack in a little bit, and that's the volume. So the volume of this will go like that. So I'm going to drag it in a little bit because we don't want to use the warp. We don't want to make the warp on this. We just want to stop that bass from making a clicking sound. And then again at the end, let's just check out what happens at the end. If we do this, you'll get a bit of a click because of how quickly it ends. Let's drag that out. Just so we get a nice smooth transition between the notes. So next up, we're going to start working on the warp. So we're going to turn the volume of this oscillator up, oscillator B. Good, good. Now, it's worth noting here that oscillator B, when we're in this mode here, which I'll go into in another video, but when we're in this setup for the operator, it means that oscillator B is being pushed through oscillator A. So that's why it changes the sound so much, because it's one waveform affecting another waveform. So let's have a listen again to how that sounds as we increase the volume on oscillator 2. So let's go about there for now. Now, that sounds pretty basic at the moment. Let's turn the coarse tuning up. Oh, wrong way. So it's at 1 when you start. Let's go to 2 and have a listen, see how that sounds. Alright, nothing too special about that, but you'll start to make that warp when we play around with the attack of oscillator 2. So let's drag that in as we play the notes, and you'll be able to see that warp start to occur. Cool. Now if we want to make that a little bit rounder and smooth it off again, we can play with this one here, which is the sustain, and it's also the decay control. Now the decay control is this section here, and that means that as soon as the note has reached the top of its attack, then it's going to drop down to wherever you leave the sustain. So it goes attack, decay, decay is the drop, sustain holds, and then release is the let go. So let's have a little look at dropping this all the way down, and let's create a bit more of a rounder warp. So that's the start. Cool. Alright, good. So they're the two sort of basic versions of a warp. You can even start to add in more oscillators if you want to make a bit of a more aggressive sound again. And again, this oscillator is going through B, which is then going through C. So whatever happens in C is going through this envelope. Oh, pardon me. This envelope. So you'll still get the warp. You don't really need to touch anything on these. Let's try and put that to a 4. Play around with the levels a bit. So one other thing I'll mention is that now that C is going through B, going through A, when you turn the volume of B down, it's not going to affect the whole sound as much, it's just going to lower the volume of the sound. Let's have a listen. It does start to affect it a little bit more, but mostly it's the top oscillator that's going to affect it. So C is going to change the sound the most at the moment. Let's take that out and let's have a little look at the bass line itself. Let's do something like that. Let's make it bigger so it's real clear. Let's play around with the octave as well. So we've got G sharp 0 here. Let's put this next one up to G sharp 1. And let's have a listen. Yep, all good. So that kind of covers the basics of a warp. You can use the LFO for this, but I'm just going to stick to the oscillators for now. Let's go into LFO in another video. So now we're going to look at the opposite of a warp, which is a donk. Can be called an organ bass in bass line if it sounds that way, but let's call it a donk for now. So you're going to go to this second oscillator, which we had out here for the warp. We want to make a donk, so it's going to be a more aggressive sound that drops out instead of a quiet sound that comes in and warps. So let's just take the attack and take it all the way back to the start. So if you listen to that now, you can hear that the end of the note's a bit aggressive. So let's mess around with the release again. And the release we'll have to do on this first oscillator, because it's the whole sound that you want to affect. So anything you want to do volume or envelope wise that wants to affect everything, you're going to use that first oscillator. I'm hoping this is still clear. I'm trying to explain this in as best a way as possible, but I might be skitting around between subjects. Let's have a listen. That makes it a little bit smoother. Cool. Let's talk about the polyphony of this instrument. So here, if you click on this, your master section here on the bottom right, click somewhere in this section and go to voices. Now voices is how many notes you can play at the same time. So if I've got that to 6, it means I could play a chord. It means I can play 6 bass notes all together. With bass, I like to put this to 1, because if 2 bass notes play together, it can create some weird sort of interaction in the low frequencies, and your bass is not going to be very clear, and it's going to behave a little bit differently than you want it to. So let's just put that to 1, and that means that we can only play 1 note at a time. Cool. Again, just a small thing, but it just helps a little bit. So let's make this donk a bit more aggressive, shall we? So we can turn the decay down to make it a bit sharper, and then let's add another oscillator again. Now you're getting into that sort of Russian speed bass sort of territory. Let's up the tempo. Let's go to 170. And then what I'm going to do is just quickly drop in a kick drum. Let's go samples. Where's the kicks at? Just wait for my computer to catch up. Alright, let's go with this one for now. Let's drop that into the drum rack. And then we just want to put 4 of those in. Doesn't matter about any technicalities here. So for a donk, you want to put all these bass notes on the offbeat. So if you look, I'll show you a simple thing here. So you can see here the bass is on the offbeat. If I flick between the operator and the drum rack, You can see the drum rack is on 1, 2, 3 and 4, and the operator is on the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So let's have a listen to how that sounds. Cool, alright, sounding good. Let's make that a bit more aggressive again. Cool, and that's the donk. So one way to think of it, if you're working on, let's take these off just for now, make it easier. If you're looking at your second oscillator, remember a donk starts off aggressive and then tails off. A warp does the opposite. So starts off quiet and then comes in creating that warp sound. Cool. And that's pretty much it for that, to be fair. I'm going to leave it there. So we've got a donk and a warp. Subscribe to my channel, like the videos, all of that business. And yeah, let's just see what we can do with this. Learning together.